So I've seen a couple of videos about books. So I've seen quite a few videos about the mid-year freakout tag. Basically, you can talk about books that are your favourite of the year so far, the most disappointing, the most surprising, and what you want to read in the second half of the year. So I thought, let's do that. Let's talk about some of the books I've read. Because don't talk about books enough. Books. After that very professional opening, we'll jump into the first prompt. Best book you've read so far in 2023. So I'm actually torn between two books, but because one of them is going to come up in a later prompt, I'm going to pick Network Effect. This is the 5th Murderbot book, and it is the first full-length novel. The first 4 in the series are actually novellas. And this series is one of my favourites of all time, and I think this is my favourite installment so far. Murderbot is just the best. One of my favourite characters of all time, just fleshed out what I already loved in the novellas, and it was great. For those that haven't read any Murderbot, Murderbot is this droid robot that works for a company and is leased out to different parties as a sort of security guard, and then it dubbed itself Murderbot because it's just pretty much hired to kill anything that will threaten its clients. But Murderbot doesn't really want to do that. It just wants to chill and watch its entertainment feed. Each one kind of has a mystery thriller type plot with an overarching story, and then this is the first full-length novel. Because Martha Wells had the extra page count of doing a full novel, the character of Murderbot goes through such a interesting and fun to read about arc in this book. It's really heartfelt, emotional, it's funny, it's thrilling, there's mystery elements, it's a sci-fi adventure. This book also has a really interesting structure. I don't want to get too much into it because it's kind of a spoiler, and it's really fun to untangle the structure and why it is the way it is while reading it. So I'm not going to go too much into it. I just go read Murderbot. It's great. I read it at the start of the year, and it is by far still my favourite read of the year, joint with this next book we're going to talk about. Prompt 2 is the best sequel you read in 2023, and this is also vying for my favourite read of the year with Murderbot, and that is The Shadow Casket, which is the sequel to The Amber Blade. Okay, I'll get it first. The Amber Blade. This is a modernised classic fantasy series. It's meant to be a trilogy, and book 2 just came out this year, and boy was it good. This series is very reminiscent of The Lord of the Rings, especially plot-wise and structurally, more so with the first book than the second book. And one thing that Chris Wooding really does well is that he's able to balance this larger cast. With a lot of other series, you do get 1 or 2 main characters and then just a bunch of side characters that don't get the same development and progression and arcs as the main characters, but I think Chris Wooding does a really good job of making these side characters very unique and interesting, and also given their own arcs, particularly in this second book. The last, 100 pages, oh boy, the end to some of the character arcs at the end of this book. I do have some gripes with this book. It's not a perfect book, but it just has so much of what I love about fantasy that it just completely overwrites all my problems with it, and I love it so much, and everybody should go read The Amber Blade and then The Shadow Casket right now. You done it yet? Okay, I'll go over some of the problems. There is some character development done off screen. We do kind of rehash part of the journey a wee bit, and we kind of go back on the same sorts of themes for a very small leg of the story. There's also some tropes I'm not a huge fan of that are in this book, but 90% of the character work is impeccable. The world is fascinating. This has one of my favourite prose styles in a book. It's very lyrical, but it's not overly metaphorical. It's just very smooth to read, but still has that flowery aspect to it. Plot is super fun, and the final battle, oh boy, it's up there with one of my favourite final battles in a fantasy book. Okay, we'll move on, or I'm going to talk about Dark War Legacy for this whole video. New release you haven't read yet but want to. I don't know if this is cheating or not, but I am currently reading Combat Codes and also Isla's Reach, which are both new releases, and I'm really enjoying both of them. So I haven't read them yet because they're not finished. Does that count? Okay, I have not started The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, and I've heard this is really good, and I love seafaring adventures, as I've mentioned once or twice on this channel. So this is a new release, and I've not read it yet, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. And I had to buy that US cover because, so yeah, that one. But also Combat Codes and Isla's Reach as well. Next up, we have the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I kind of have a couple. Sanderson's Secret Project 3 is one I'm really excited for. Out of the 4, that was the one I was most excited for. Last year, Sanderson did release snippets of all 4 of the secret projects, and the 3rd one was the one I was most excited for. So I'm going to be reading that on July 1st when it comes out, because I'm so excited to read it. I'm not going to talk about it because I know a lot of people are going in blind. But that one. Also the Cyberpunk book. I really like the world of Cyberpunk. The game was really good when it worked, but the show Cyberpunk Edgerunners is terrific. If you've not seen that and you like animated shows, highly recommend. But one of the big draws to the Cyberpunk franchise is the world building and the setting. So the fact we're getting a full-length novel in it, I'm really excited for that. I think that will be really good. The 7th Murderbot book as well, obviously, after my previous comments. The prequel to Legends and Lattes comes out at the end of the year as well. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. Really excited for that one as well. I'm also looking forward to Daniel Green's Witch's Sin. For the same reasons as Cyberpunk, I just love that genre, and I've not read enough of it. In fact, I've not really read any of it. And I'm probably missing some, but that's all the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So let me know what anticipated releases you're looking forward to towards the end of the year. Future Andrew here because past Andrew forgot the biggest disappointment of 2023 so far. This might seem like a weird choice because I have recommended it a couple times, but Will White's House of Blades. It was in a reading vlog, so if you want to see my thoughts while I'm reading it for more comprehensive thoughts, then check that out. But I did almost put it down while reading the first third of the book. It just wasn't drawn in, the setup wasn't particularly interesting. The characters I just couldn't connect with, I think was a really big problem. However, the middle third, when we got to the House of Blades, was so much fun. It's such a cool setting and leg of the story. I really wish that that was the majority of the book rather than just a little bit in the middle. And then the last third was good. It was fine. It wasn't as good as the middle, but it wasn't as bad as the start for me. I still wasn't overly connected to the characters, but it was a bit of a disappointment because of what it could have been. I could see this being a favourite if it was just more of that middle section, so it was a wee bit of a disappointment. The biggest surprise of 2023. This one is a weird one because I got sent an arc for I Am AI, and it was right when I was finishing up my book, and I really wanted something short that I can just get through fast and have a complete story done. So as soon as she sent over that and said it's a novella, it's sci-fi, I thought, yeah, that sounds cool, I'm happy to check that out. I thought, what better timing? But I did not expect to love it as much as I did. It was terrific. I thought I would enjoy it. I wouldn't have taken the arc if I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I did think it was going to be good solid read. I liked it. I did not expect to finish it and be emotionally damaged. I went in thinking it was going to be a short novella talking about AI in the creative field. Interesting topic, very relevant of late. This story is so much more than that. I Am AI perfectly blends its themes to its character, and I say themes plural because this really explores lots of different ideas. I did review this, and I said in my review I don't want to talk too much about the themes and things because I think different people will see different things in this story, and that is part of the magic of it. It does talk about work ethic, AI in creative fields, what it means to be human. It really does encapsulate a lot of different ideas. So I highly recommend it if you want a short, dramatic sci-fi story. Favorite new author, debut, or new to you? I've been reading a lot of sequels, so I've not read a lot of new authors. So I Am AI is a good one because I hadn't read anything from that author before, but I loved it so much I'm definitely going to go check out her other work. I did also read the book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence, and this is the first ever book I've read from Mark Lawrence, and I really enjoyed it. I did shoot a full reading vlog of it, so if you want more comprehensive thoughts. But just super quick, I thought the characters were great. I thought the world building and the sort of mystery aspect with the plot and the setting and how that slowly unravels towards the end was masterfully done. Every element of this story felt purposeful and irreplaceable, and Mark Lawrence really did meld together setting, character, world building, plot masterfully. I did think it was a little slow in places for my taste, but overall I really enjoyed it, and that ending. And I will definitely be reading more of Mark Lawrence's work. I do have Prince of Thorns on my shelf and Red Sister on my Kindle, so I'm definitely going to have to pick up one of them before the end of the year. If you have a recommendation on which one I should pick up first, let me know. Next up we have newest fictional crush. I don't really get crushes on fictional characters, but I have been reading the War Eternal books by Rob Hayes, and the main character, Eska, she really needs a hug. So I'm just gonna pick her for this one. Just, you know, she really needs a hug. She's having a rough time of it. Next up, we have Book That Made You Cry. Again, I don't really cry with books, but certainly the most emotionally damaging was The Shadow Casket. Chris Wooding, you're a monster. You know what you've done. Some scenes in this book, traumatizing. Absolutely traumatizing. There was one point in this story towards the end where it's just nobody's having a good time. Just everybody's at their absolute lowest, and it's amazing. Wow, I should really talk to my therapist about that. Next up, we have Book That Made You Happy. For this one, I would probably pick Murder Bombs, but so I don't repeat myself, I'm going to pick Tress of the Emerald Sea. First secret project from the Brando Sando himself. And this is just a joy to read. It's a fairy tale-esque story. It's got some humor in it. Characters are great. The world building is great, of course, because it's a Sanderson book. And I challenge anyone to read this without a smile on their face. It really is just a nice book. I love the fairy tale-esque feeling to it. Even structurally, there was some parts of the story where you can see direct influence from fairy tales. The humor in this is really funny. Just lighthearted, it's fun, and it's just a happy read. And it's a seafaring adventure, and it's Sanderson. It does all the good things. I did do a full review, so if you want to see more comprehensive thoughts. The Thing. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year. Gorgeous. Oh. Viewed. In all seriousness, Tress is probably my favorite overall package. Just the details that are in this, all the different illustrations. I love the more leather-bound type hardcover, the embossing and everything on the cover. It's a stunning book. However, it's not my favorite cover. I think cover-wise, I'm kind of torn between the US edition of The Adventures of Amin al-Sarafi. I mean, just look at that cover. That's so cool. And also Isla's Reach. I mean, look at that. It would be a sin if I didn't mention the Broken Binding edition of Blood and Fire. I love that cover. I think it looks absolutely amazing. And also the sprayed edges, the naked hardback, and also the artwork inside and the new formatting. Overall, it is just absolutely stunning. Next up, both Elliot Brook and Fun Fantasy Books included their favourite adaptation of the year, so I thought I would include that too. For me, I kind of got two. The first one is kind of the obvious pick, The Last of Us. This is based on the video game that came out on the PS3, then re-released on the PS4, then re-released on the PS5. I actually never finished the game, but I absolutely love the show. I think the narrative is incredible. I think the set design and the visual effects all looked amazing. The performances from the two main actors. Every week I was counting down the days until the next Last of Us episode. Top notch. I also want to include Alice in Borderland. Season 2 came out at the end of 2022 and I watched it at the start of this year, and it is an adaptation from a manga, I believe. And Season 2, with that type of show, it's very difficult to nail the ending because cheap twists and turns just don't work. But they did such a good job. I had no idea how it was going to end, and I was really worried. They ended it so well, and every episode was really good. It was just something you wanted to sit and binge. Heartbreaking, emotional, all the adjectives. It's all the things. You should go watch it. And last but not least, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? Oh boy. The really big one for me is starting Hob. And I'm going to start this really soon, so hopefully I'm going to nail this goal quite quickly. We'll see, but I really am excited to start Hob. I've been putting her off for a long time because I know it's such a big series, but I'm tricking myself. I'm telling myself it's a trilogy rather than a 16-book series, and a trilogy is a lot more manageable. I was kind of hoping to get to it in June, but it might be July. But still very soon. I want to finish the Greenbone saga. I've only got Jade Legacy left, so I need to finish that, but it's quite a chunky boy. But I really am looking forward to seeing how this trilogy ends. I've heard that it's the best book in the trilogy, and it's heartbreaking and emotional, and I'm not ready, but I'll read it. I also plan on finishing Mistborn Era 2. I am on the Bands of Mourning, so I need to read this and then the Lost Metal. I'm kind of waiting for the Lost Metal to come out in paperback, that's why I'm not ready yet. Probably end up binging this and then the Lost Metal, so definitely one I want to get to before the end of the year, especially seeing as Stormlight 5 is coming out at the end of next year. The Shadow of What Was Lost has been on my TBR for so long. I'm pretty sure I talked about it in my anticipated reads of this year, and I'm not ready yet. So I'm really hoping to get to this. There's just so many books and I'm a slow reader. I'm a very slow reader. But I would very much like to also squeeze in that trilogy. Just not gonna sleep. That's the solution. That's what I need to do. That'll do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please let me know in the comments below your favorite and least favorite read of the year so far. I am planning on doing a top reads of the year as well, so I will talk about more of the books that I loved. So my book came out this year, Harbinger of Justice. It's dark fantasy, ancient Egyptian influences. It's good. And thank you very much for watching. Outro.